So for this part, which will link to maybe the comparative international literature, which you did in the literature review, I'm thinking of the whole PhD here that you come to the end, you will need to be interviewing the local Jordan people to look at the typical aspects of crisis management. Then we can do something more about which ones are there particular problems in that are really causing big problems and some others not so much. So this is the way we're starting to build. And then maybe you're getting some really, so this is more descriptive, but up here, by the time we get to the top, we're trying to really ask, what do you recommend, for the best, the best model using the organisational, particularly related to the organisational behaviour. Because then you're talking crisis management. I guess the crisis management of a particular. So who are you talking about? You're talking about the organisations that do crisis management. Is that really what you? The special groups that are set up to do crisis management. You're talking about their organisational.
Yeah, I'm talking about organisation, not talking about countries or community, not natural disaster. I'm talking about crisis within organizations.
Okay, when we say that's right. Sorry, organisational support. So okay. I think I would say more the practical aspects of the crisis management where there are problems. Maybe here, what are all the organisational factors that are really so we're developing this further that are caught up in the issues, the challenges of good crisis management. And then if you're linking this to some interviews and asking questions, we might have a question here about what would be something like the optimal organisational support, where they actually give their opinions on what are the critical factors to have the best organisational support for the crisis management. You see where we're going with this. You might change this a little bit, but you're getting a structure, allows you to interview, allows you to link together the different elements. Okay.
What is that difference between crisis management and conflict management?
Well, this is beyond the scope of today. I think the answer lies. That ultimately your PhD is about organisational support within a particular context. So the answer would be that what you learned in that particular context maybe a lot of it's relevant to similar areas, including conflict. That would be. But it's where you need to be clear on what the outcome. Because if you're not clear, you could get very confused.
Can we make it like the first and the 1, 2, 3 will be the research question?
The way that I've been doing this for 5 years now, so let me just tell you a few things. Firstly, when somebody comes to me with 100 questions, I tell them we want 3 which will be the research questions and your other questions can be data questions. So in other words, it's a little bit, to the extent that we call this the research and the other data question, this has to do with the design and the architecture of the PhD. But some of the questions, in a sense, these are very close and they're organising other data questions, in a sense. But for our purpose and how it links to this and this, it's a research question. So I do separate between research and data gathering question. The purpose ultimately is for these. Now, why do I say 3? I will tell you, and after 5 years, I don't even, in the beginning I said about 3. Now I just say, we do 3 because 3 is the golden number. Well, for 2 reasons. Firstly, in the field of rhetoric, all politicians are taught the law of 3. You listen to politicians from now on. They're already doing this, law of 3 words. And public speaking, 3 structure. Any of you do Toastmasters, they use the law of the 3 to help people organise an argument or discussion. So this has been around for thousands of years. It's a golden law. Not many articles on it, but I will tell you, it's the law of 3. But there's another reason that I do. This is the 3 is to do with developing a natural system, an ecosystem. So one is what I call the external axis, one is the internal axis, and the other is the mediating axis of the system. So I use this everything. I took the law of 3. Well, I won't go into it, but there's another. It's a natural system we're building. So 3 is the right number to get the right structure. So and people say, can I have 4 or 5? I said, no, you can put them under as a data question. I want you to keep 3. I mean, the honest answer is you could do more if you want, but if you really want the optimal method, you really want to harness what I'm telling you, this is the best. You could still do 1 or 2 other research questions if you want. But suddenly we have 10 or 15 research questions, and then we have a dog's breakfast of a PhD. All over the place. And that's what happens. Too many, some people have no research questions, some people have way too many. Here we have the perfect number, the perfect system, including about 10 data questions. You have about the perfect number with this system. I actually break this down into each one 3 by 3. So it's not really 10. My real method with Farrell is that I said I want 3 key points and then 3 questions under these 3 points, and suddenly we have 9 questions. If we do that, it becomes even easier and better. So I didn't even tell you the full method, but I'm just giving you a little bit of that. Now, if you really want to have a quick go, and we just see very quickly, just to get a bit of a sense, why don't I give you a few minutes that you just very, very to think about how do you get from here to here with a couple of the sort of questions or research questions that will help you to be the foundation to answer the main question. I'll give you a few minutes, and then I think we just have time to look at 1 or 2 to get a sense of how this can really, really help you to have the architecture. And at the end of the day, it's the architecture for the most effective way to do a successful PhD and develop the design of the PhD. So I'll give you a few minutes to maybe have a go at it.
I think we have it here, right? We have the space for that.
I actually, some of the notes, I haven't had time to look at it, but some of the notes were actually, how do we break into the 3? Yes. So what was the page, read about page?
This, you want to read?
Well, it's the second last one at the bottom there. I had this idea of a basic research design with the 3 questions. And so if you want to put, or if you just want to put in you can just put in here. This is the easier one, the quicker one at the end. How it all fits together. So we have the foundation, the main question, and the 3 questions a little bit longer. Come back on this. Not this one. I think this is. So, if it's one-on-one, this is basically, we just sit there and do it 20 minutes, we've got the whole thing finished. If I do the very long workshops, I take you thinking through a much longer process of thinking. I have a little bit of a secret. For example, I'll just tell you one secret. One of the secrets of everything in life is that most people don't know what they want in life, about anything. Most people are lost about everything. But what people are much more clearer, and includes web design, developed this a little bit, is most people, because web design, they had no rules when I started to do it, so I said, we can't even refer to the manuals. But I said, in teaching good web design, I'm going to start by looking at what we will all agree upon. And we all agree upon what is bad web design. Very important. So, in other words, we agree, we can eliminate, if you focus on what you don't want to do the PhD, you put down 3 or 4 topics, you eliminate the ones that you're not enthusiastic about, and suddenly you're clearer what you really want to do by eliminating what you don't want to do. That's a little bit of a method that I didn't talk about, but that helps you to link it to doing something on the web design as well. So just a couple of minutes to put down a couple of points. Okay.
You mean this SH3? We refer here?
No, I'll get you on the. You should have already. I actually have been talking about doing the one like this, so that you just write in just 1 or 2 sentences to help you think. We don't have time to do.
It's the last page of the handout.
Yeah, the last page. I just want you to get started to think about how do you get from a rationale to the main question, so that you're thinking about how do you build up. And this will organise how do you collect some information, the data, how do we collect some data, who do you collect the data from, and if we've got the architecture, then you can continue this later and polish it up by yourself. and then you've got a little bit of the secret and the method. What would you use for PhD? It's considered plagiarism when you use exact words. Yes, technically. But it's considered it's not as bad as stealing from somebody else. So technically, if you're going to reuse an article, your own work, you need to revise the text. Even at your own, you can put your own reference, but plagiarism, the surface and deep plagiarism. Surface plagiarism is even your own work, you can plagiarise yourself by using the exact words somewhere else and you didn't. So if you either quote yourself or you have to paraphrase yourself. That's the exact answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's sort of an interesting one in that if you do a paper after the PhD and you're actually taking parts, I think actually it's acceptable in that sense. So it depends how you do it. If you have unpublished PhD and you take part of the reporting of the PhD and you take section, then I think that's okay.
Excuse me. To be just sure, the bottom we need to come up with a general question, then in the middle is data gathering question.
Okay, what I just wanted you to do, just to be clear, we've already done very quickly because it's all been a bit quick. We've got the background, the right, where you say why are you doing this, where you're going, and then we link this up to the main question is really trying to be very specific about at the end of the PhD, did you answer this question? In between, I'm trying to get a sense of how do you start to organise building from that to that in a way that you can then go and interview people or collect information to answer it. So this is a bit of an architecture, and I've given you several ways that you can do it. One way is that you start to go and explore the factors that are involved, but this will involve, if it's a bit complicated, as we started to get over here, we can then use these to actually answer quite different questions. And the first two could be very, very different. One on, let's say, one on crisis management, and the other on organisational support. And then we link together here. You can do that also. So it's just a way of organising different sort of questions that will all come together. And all I want today is just you to think about how do we put the structure to link everything together. I mean, the best way is not even so much a building, it's really building I think it's an ecosystem. You're linking everything, the knowledge ecosystem. PhD is a knowledge ecosystem of all the words, ideas, all fitting together in a nice, integrated, cohesive system. And if you can do that, nobody can fail it, or should be able to fail if you do it most effectively. So, for now, just I mean, there's a couple of ways that I would recommend strongly. But for your purpose, I want you just to think about how you go from here to here in a way that links things together, that will allow you to develop interview and survey questions, or data gathering questions to help you do that. In other words, as I put in another diagram, I think we saw it earlier, maybe I put that very quickly. What we're doing is with the three questions, trying to convert what information needed to answer, who, where, and how to get this information. And this is your knowledge building pyramid, will be all the data as well as the research questions. You'll have the whole thing. So you saw the example of Farrell where we convert into a whole set of questions. Well, this is what we're developing here. So this becomes the clear structure, and this becomes a successful PhD. This is the secret. This is the most important. If you want to see how it all fits together, this is really very powerful, because it's an archive of the sequence, the exact sequence And if we do this, we don't do this in the first 20 minutes, we do this in the first few weeks. So the first 20 minutes we get the design of the whole PhD. In the first month, if you do this, you actually got the whole detail of the whole PhD. In the first month. That's why when I said, I wasn't joking when I said you can do PhD in 6 months. This is the secret of how you would do it. Because this is the structure to write everything up. You collect it, and then you write it up. It's finished. And I'll say this, it's that easy, because everybody thinks it's so difficult to do a PhD. It's not really difficult in principle. Actually quite easy. It's because people think it's so difficult that they just sit there doing nothing and nothing. Speak to me data, speak to me, I want to find the PhD in the books, and they get lost in all these 4 ways. So that's the theme of today, the 4 ways of getting lost. And this is the secret of never getting lost. You've got that over here, you're not lost, and then you just develop this into here, you polish it up, collect the data, you write it up, finish. And it'll connect everything together. And if you write well enough, you've got to polish it up with the writing. So one of my last secret is to spend a lot of time polishing up. If you want to waste time in a PhD, waste it in the last year polishing up the PhD to make sure it's so good. Because I told you at the beginning, you get the PhD for the written document. You don't get it for the project. So spend a year polishing it up, getting feedback and keep rewriting. And so good, nobody can ever fail. But don't spend 3 weeks writing up a PhD. It's what some people do. They do 2.5 years doing the project, and they say, we just write up at the end as a report. It's a big mistake. It's a really big mistake, and quite a lot of people do it. Okay, I know we're out of time. Very quickly, did anybody just want maybe one example of somebody who has tried to put in how they would get from these 3 questions in the middle? Yeah.
Okay, I will start from this C, from the bottom up. So on C, put in this bring of malicious high school talents in challenges, economic development. So what are the value proposition, commercial factors and attributes that will contribute to national talent retention as perceived by malicious high school talent? Yeah.
All right, I mean, let's very briefly, just to, it's going in the right direction. I can see a couple of points here that if I want to do the study on the talent, retention of talent, I really want to know what is talent, or what is the profile of the talent that meets the national needs. I will be asking some sort of question, starting from building up, about, maybe in terms of the national priority, because actually this underlines the talent corporation. In terms of the national priorities, what are both the, what are some of the attributes to define talent for the purpose of this policy? I would put some question in a little bit along the lines to allow you, to go and get a clearer sense of what do people mean when they talk about talent for the Malaysian context, or at least the talent corporation, Malaysian talent corporation, for their purpose. Because to be honest, I think they're mixing up a couple of things. They're actually talking, talent is very clever people, very, very smart people. But talent is also a sort of national profile of different skills and capacities as well. So it's a bit of both. So when people use these words, they mean everything to anybody. So
to define what is.
well, I think it is, and I think a good outcome of your PhD that would help the Talent Corporation, help Malaysia, because I'll get you a job. Go and ask for a job at the Talent Corporation when you finish this, I'll get you a job. If you can show them a better way of profiling, when they use the word talent, about national profile of national attributes of skills and knowledge, that they want people that have the skills and knowledge, versus the more simplistic notion of talent is very, very clever people. Then we have a much more meaningful notion of talent that can be more consistently applied to the strategies to actually attract people. Because if you just say, oh, we want to attract talent.
Can you use this NKA from these 12 national areas?
You can because the 12 NKA, what do you call it, key economic areas is actually what they mean. I know because I've seen the documents from the National Talent Corporation. So actually, in their documents, if you look closely, they actually say with priority to the national policy needs with particular reference to the national key economic areas. So actually that's a little bit what they mean already. So if you're doing, I mean, but it doesn't mean that in other countries. A lot of people now all talk about, you know, all the multinational corporations attract talent. Everybody's attracting talent and some of them mean different things. So your study will actually have to sort out a little bit at the bottom, the different international as well as local uses of the word talent. So maybe that becomes the foundation of the study here before you become a little bit of how do you actually retain them? Who do you retain? For what purpose? Or whatever, because that becomes the higher questions.
So can I actually define this high school talents in my paper and relate that to this 12 MKEs?
You're going to have to be clear about what it means. The way I would put it is I think you could question something along the lines of what are the particular attributes of talent within the Malaysian policy context, something like that. Because underneath that, you can then do a few different things. You can also compare to what people commonly and maybe internationally call talent, which may be quite different to the Malaysian context, but you can also be much clearer. And so that would be, you could also sort of link it, maybe you could, see, this is a good example. When I said that you can then divide this area into 3 sub-areas, that's exactly how you could do it. You could have 3 questions relating to an international notion of talent, 3 questions relating to the Malaysian concept of what talent means, and maybe a third 3 in relation to something even similar, or comparing. How do they overlap? Well, certainly this is what I meant about breaking down into 3 by 3 within this, and you suddenly got 9 questions, but they're building up in a very useful way that you have very useful information here, and allows you, to develop a Malaysian context profile to be very clear, and how it is different to international notions of, I mean, there's other similar organisations in other countries, and they may be, some of it's very similar and some of it's a bit different. But now you have a foundation to make that difference, because when you talk about policies of retention, you can't just go and borrow policies of Singapore. Malaysia is different to Singapore, because Singapore has talent policy as well. So you will have to come up with something out of Malaysia, for a Malaysian policy and talent retention in the Malaysian context. How is it different, and how will it need to be different to be more successful? Suddenly you've got the platform to give very, very good advice to the government and the talent corporation. When you do the PhD, go and ask them for the job, or maybe they give you a lot of money for the project, and no, it's free commission. I'm not asking any commission for the idea. Just joking. Okay, look, I think we have run out of time. Does everybody get a little bit of where we're going with this? I'm going to finish off with a little bit of an offer. I'm extremely busy at the moment. I'm flying somewhere tomorrow to do some project. And next week is really out of the question, but I'm going to make an offer that the following, I don't know, you can tell me, I'm going to say I can put a bit of a time aside that if anybody having particular problems and they want to have a one-on-one session, if you want to organise, Hanif, yes, I will make myself available for a few hours, maybe the following Monday. Not next week, but next week I'm away most of the week and I'm really, really busy, but the following Monday or Tuesday, I'm happy to say, I'm happy to put a bit of time aside. Maybe we can do it like this, is that if you would like to have such a meeting, you could let Hanif know and he put your name down. If you want to organise...
Actually, also, you told us that you are intended to conduct a workshop on academic writing, and everyone almost here is interested to attend another meeting for academic writing,
okay.
journal writing,
Okay,
academic
I'm going
writing.
to another workshop.
Especially since I think your first degree is like linguistics something.
All right.
And that next 2 Monday is going to be 24th, right?
But guess by fixing the first one is much better at helping us other than that academic writing.
It's
Yeah.
two separate things.
One-on-one
You're going to have two.
Huh?
There are two
Oh.
separate things.
Well, I will say, okay, look, okay, all right, okay, I'll read to this. But I will make one point. I mean, one of the challenges of academic writing is more than when you have something to actually do it with. So one of the things where I found it more useful to do the writing workshop is really to focus on, for example, converting the PhD to published articles. I find that's probably a more useful way.
Yeah.
So maybe I could do a workshop. I did a couple of years ago. I haven't done it for a long time, but I did something similar, and I could do another version. And while I talk about that, I can talk about all the related hints of academic writing, including this idea that if you have the key words and the idea of it's the same as the PhD. If you have a clear topic, then you can link the paragraphs and the words much more effectively. I also have a bit of a formula for the academic paper too, by the way. So there's a bit of a structure. So maybe if we build it around that, and I give some also general advice that also is useful for the whole PhD, including, for example, some of the stuff on the referencing, which I didn't cover at all. Okay, but let's separate it. And as I say, I'm going to have to check my schedule, but why don't we keep it the following Monday is just people have particular problems on a one-on-one session, and then we will talk and maybe
like planning for this
maybe
academic
in
writing.
3 or 4 weeks we'll put another session where I do all the writing.
Okay.
Is that okay with everyone?
So that Monday is going to be 24th, right?
No,
17th?
I just have to double check. I think from my schedule in my head that it should be okay on the Monday. Which is what.
Okay, I'll check with you, then I will send email to all because they have written their all emails.
All right. Well, I'm pretty sure it should be okay. So why don't we assume I will double. If there's a problem when I go back to my diary, I'll let you know straight away.
All right.
Otherwise, you can. So what I'll suggest is if you really want to have a bit of one-on-one session, I'm really busy at the moment. So what I can do is I can put aside a few hours. If there's a lot of people, I think we have to make a sort of limit on the time, 15, 20 minutes or something like that. Depending on how many people.
Is it going to be like the opening session, like everyone also can attend, or is going to be like?
No, this is one-on-one.
Okay. Is it going to happen in IBS or your own office? There's no difference. Also, we can get the room here, no problem.
I guess it's
But
probably
no
best in
more-
my office. I can put up on the computer. Yeah, it's best in my office. So I can never remember the number of my room because it's quite new.
Yeah.
So
Even I forget your floor. Your floor is 6, right?
it's on the 6th floor of the MJIT building across, and I think it's room 58 on the 6th floor.
MJIT.
The big one just
I
across
mean,
the
you
way.
can just email us.
Yeah, sure. I have your email. I will email all of you.
So let me know how many. If it's a lot of people, it'll have to be a little bit shorter. If it's not so many people, we can have a little bit more time, and then we work out exactly from that schedule.
Yeah, I will write down my own email. Then everyone who is interested, they can email to me.
Everyone is interested.
Okay, I hope that's been a little bit useful. I hope the main thing is that you can finish, you can be successful. So the main message is that there is a way to make it easy. You stay positive.
Okay, yeah, just one moment. Sorry.
Class, after my announcement that we are going to give some gift for our program.
Well, thank you very much.
Pictures. Okay. You read the
Give it back when we go back. All right.
Can we have the group picture?
Can group picture, can
Sure,
group picture.
sure.
So please go to group pictures. Yeah, please join for group picture, please.
Sure. Will be happy.
Shorter in front, you might need to squeeze up a little.
Definitely me.
Okay, everyone ready? 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3.
Any venue?
One more.
I'll take one. I'll take
Any
one.
camera? Anyone wants to get?
Yes. No, I mean you.
Yeah,
In
I need to
the
be
picture.
also.
Okay, so you're behind me.
Okay.
Like football.
Ready?
Football team.
Okay, smile. One more time.
Satu lagi.
Sekali lagi.
Alright.
And also with that phone. Song.
One more?
Yeah.
Oh man.
One more please.
One more time.
One more time.
One more time. One.
Later can go for massage.
Okay. Okay, one more. Smile.
Oh.
More? Okay.
Smart guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Little six of them.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think
So how we stop this one?